دكتورة جيلان ستارت.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. السادة الحضور، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. Ladies and gentlemen, we have the pleasure to host you at African Women Conference held by AABA. Please note that there is a channel, English channel, for those who would like to attend the conference with the English language. So please, you can press the button in order to be able to follow our sessions. Thank you for that. I will return back to talk in English. Thank you. يسعدني أن أرحب بحضراتكم في مؤتمر المرأة الأفريقية الذي تعقده لجنة المرأة بجمعية رجال الأعمال المصريين الأفارقة برئاسة الدكتور يسري الشرقاوي. وعنوان المؤتمر هو دور المرأة الأفريقية في دعم اتفاقية التجارة البينية الأفريقية في ظل تحديات ما بعد جائحة كورونا. وينضم إلينا كوكبة من النساء الرائدات في مجال التنمية الاقتصادية بالقارة الأفريقية الخضراء. ونتشرف أن تكون معنا رائدة جليلة هي الدكتورة أماني أبو زيد كمتحدث رسمي لهذا المؤتمر، وتشغل سيادتها منصب مفوض الاتحاد الأفريقي للبنية التحتية والطاقة والمعلوماتية والسياحة، ولسيادتها باع كبير كخبيرة دولية في التنمية الاقتصادية والاجتماعية، وقد شغلت العديد من المناصب في منظمات دولية، وتترأس أيضا منظمات وبرامج أفريقية ودولية متعددة. وستتناول سيادتها في كلمتها التعافي الذكي والأخضر في القارة الأفريقية ما بعد كوفيد-19 ودور المرأة الأفريقية. وأود أشير أن هذا المؤتمر يندرج تحته حلقتين نقاشتين. الأولى تحتوي على هدفين رئيسين، وهما دور المرأة الأفريقية للوقوف على تحديات فيروس كورونا وأثر ذلك في دعم التجارة البينية الأفريقية. والهدف الثاني يتناول سبل الدعم لإنجاح رائدات الأعمال الأفريقيات مع استعراض تجارب وقصص نجاح. بينما الحلقة النقاشية الثانية تتمحور نحو التمويل ودور المصارف والمؤسسات المالية لدعم الاستثمارات الأفريقية وتنمية التجارة البينية فيما بعد كورونا. وأود أن أشير أن كل متحدث سيكون لديه 10 دقائق لإلقاء كلمته، وقبل نهاية المؤتمر ستقومنا سيادتكم بتقديم توصية لتكون ضمن مخرجات فعاليات هذا المؤتمر المهم في وقتنا الراهن. والآن أرحب بالدكتور يسري الشرقاوي رئيس جمعية رجال الأعمال المصريين الأفارقة ورئيس المؤتمر للافتتاح وبدء فعاليات المؤتمر. فليتفضل سيادة.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اسمحوا لي أن أشكركم جميعا وأشكر كل المتابعين. في البداية أقدم شكر وتقديري وعرفاني للدكتورة أماني أبو زيد على مشاركتها وعلى وجودها على رأس المتحدثين. الدكتورة أماني المصرية الإفريقية التي تفتخر بها القارة الأفريقية لوجودها ودورها المحوري البارز في العمل التنموي الإفريقي. شرفنا كثيرا جدا باستضافة الدكتورة أماني. سعيد جدا لوجودها اليوم في رأس قائمة المتحدثين. أشكر المهندسة عبير ليطة رئيسة لجنة المرأة الإفريقية في جمعية رجال أعمال المصريين الأفارقة. أشكر بابتيستا من غانا نائب رئيس اللجنة. والنهارده يمكن لدينا حضور مشرف ومتابعين أكثر من 770 مسجل في الزوم غير الفيسبوك بيجز، يمكن منهم اكثر من 63 الى 75% من السب صحاري، وده شيء كويس جدا بيسعدنا وشرفنا. بالاصاله عن نفسي ونيابه عن مجلس اداره الجمعيه وعن كل اعضاء الجمعيه ونيابه عن 686 مليون 454 الف 746 امراه افريقيه. 686 مليون 454 الف 746 امراه افريقيه في ارض القاره، منهم من تخطوا 15 عام، 56% في سن العمل. يشكرون حضوركم الكريم ويشكرون هذه الوقفة الجيدة في هذا اليوم الجميل لدور المرأة الأفريقية في التعافي في مرحلة ما بعد كورونا وفي مستجدات التجارة البينية الأفريقية. لن أطيل عليكم. دعوني أشكر كل من يدعم عمل الجمعية في العمل المشترك في الجانب المصري الأفريقي. دعوني أقدم الشكر لآخر حدث أجريناه، وهو بروتوكول تعاون مشترك مع الأكاديمية العربية للعلوم والتكنولوجيا والنقل البحري برئاسة الدكتور اسماعيل عبد الغفار، حتى نستطيع أن تستقبل العالمين الجديدة الطلاب الأفارقة في العلوم والتكنولوجيا الحديثة عبر جمعية رجال الأعمال المصريين الأفارقة. أترك الكلمات للسادة الحضور، وفي مقدمتهم الدكتورة أماني وباقي المتحدثات الفاضلات. شكرا جزيلا.
دكتورة أماني تتفضل.
شكرا.
تفضل.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Dear Dr. Yusri Sharqawi, Chairperson of the Egyptian African Business Persons Association, dear sisters and brothers from across the continent, distinguished representatives of organizations, institutions, participants, members of the press, ladies and gentlemen, all protocol observed. I greet you all from the African Union, your union, and I would like first to congratulate the Egyptian African Business Persons Association for organizing this web conference on the important topic about the role of African women going forward in this very critical times. I am particularly thankful to Dr. Sharqawi for inviting me to share with you a few thoughts. Mr. Chair, distinguished participants, on January 1st, 2021, this year, free trading officially commenced under the African Continental Free Trade Area, abbreviated as AFCFTA. Negotiations which have lasted like about 5 years resulted in the signing of the trade agreement in March 2018. It entered into force 30th of May 2019. Free trading began, as I said, 1st of January of this year after a 6 months delay following the COVID-19 outbreak last year. And then the first shipment took place on January 4th, 2021. The free trade area is a significant milestone on the journey of Africa, on the journey to African integration and development. The free trade area establishes a single market for made in Africa goods and services, eliminates tariffs by almost 90%, tackles non-tariff barriers such as customs delays, a unified market of 1.3 billion people, and a combined GDP of $3 trillion is potentially a strong foundation also for industrialization. We aim to see the African exports, intra-African trade, grow from a low base of 17% to more than 50% within the next 1 or 2 years. Trade of all types of goods and services underpins efforts to achieve the Agenda 2063 of the African Union, but also the Sustainable Development Goals. The free trade area is about scale and upscaling. It's about thinking bigger. It's about aiming for bigger markets beyond the local. It's about looking beyond the limitations of the billion-dollar domestic markets of our individual countries to exploring the trillion-dollar continental market that the free trade area now makes possible. Infrastructure, it goes without saying, whether it's transport in all its modes, energy, digitalization are crucial and are conditions sine qua non for the upscaling of the free trade area and effective operationalization of the AFCFTA. Now, how is this relevant to women? And why am I delivering this to business women? I'll come to that. But first, I would like us to think at the times where we are living through and the times we are witnessing. COVID-19 pandemic has brought to the forefront the fragility of global supply chains, heavily dependent on logistics services. In Africa, the inherently poor infrastructure, low digital connectivity, and weak logistics has led to serious disruptions in the livelihoods of urban and rural populations, and disproportionately affecting women, who constitute the majority of low-paying, informal, and insecure jobs and economic activities. And just let me say that more than 70%, almost 85% of our economies are informal. And 90% of the informal of women work in the informal sector. So you understand, when there is disruption of in the informal sector, women are mostly affected. But this is not the only impact. We all know that women have also been at the forefront fighting the COVID, because the majority, more than 70% of the medical teams are made of women. Women are the primary caregivers, whether at home with COVID or without COVID. In addition to the chores and so many roles women play. And with the wage losses and this widespread unemployment and sometimes even violence, women have been suffering indeed under COVID. But I would like here to congratulate the Egyptian government for the remarkable management of the economy under these difficult global conditions, and for supporting the livelihoods of people, especially those in the informal sector, cushioning the impact of the pandemic through special financial assistance. Moreover, Egypt is the only country in the region to register a holistic response to support women during the coronavirus pandemic, with measures that span from economic protection and paid care and combating violence against women. But to recover this post-COVID time is also a great opportunity for us to ask important, almost existential questions, and to link that also with the operationalization of the free trade area. What are we recovering into? Do we want to go back to the 2019 conditions? I don't think so. Now, how can we make the recovery and the free trade area work for everyone, women and men? The answer, in my view, is a new path, a break from traditional norms, from the traditional and the conventional stereotypes, a break from old technologies, a break from massive use of pollution and fossil fuel, break from the 2019 business models, to chart a path that is inclusive, that is green, that is smart. Just see how much are we using technology. See, the beauty of technology that is bringing all of us together now. So the beauty of this new pathway is that Africa could be and is, in my view, the best continent to do this wonderful recovery, endowed with the majority of youth, which is who they are. They are our biggest asset. Remarkable women and girls, leapfrogging in digitalization, integrating, opening its borders. We have everything to make this recovery major and really life-changing for the continent, and taking us where we truly want to be. True, we do have, of course, major challenges and hindrances. And here I'm going to talk again infrastructure, because this is where maybe my responsibilities and passion lie. I know that infrastructure sometimes it's inexistent in Africa, in some parts of our countries or continent. It's often unreliable or low quality. But infrastructure, what we need is from 130 to 170 billion dollars a year worth of infrastructure projects for Africa. And this is going to increase also, or to be fast-tracked, thanks to the free trade area. And when we say deficit, We also say investment opportunity. Now, I look at these huge infrastructure projects across our continent and the potential they bring for growth and the potential they bring for wealth creation, for employment. And the question is, so how many women participate in these huge sectors, in these huge projects? How many did these projects, look into women interests, concerns in the design? How many women are employed in these projects so as to benefit from the jobs created? How many businesses have participated in these huge contracts to also benefit from the wealth creation? I think you already know the answer to these questions, which is very little. And even when we find women working in infrastructure projects, they're very often office-based corporate functions like HR, finance, legal, or marginal roles or managerial roles, but mid-management. Women-led businesses or contractors are hardly considered because they have, these are large contracts. Women-led enterprises often are low profile. They lack the network, the male network. They are hardly ever financed. And here I'm not at all talking about small and medium enterprises. I'm talking about huge and important finance that is needed in these important and big projects. So there are real and strong obstacles for women-led enterprises, for women engineers, women technicians to work in these upcoming and already implemented huge infrastructure projects, and we need to change that. This comes at a time when it was demonstrated that a lack of gender equality puts infrastructure at a disadvantage. And it has also, research has also proved that women-led enterprises grow faster, they have higher profit margins, and at a time when we are applying digitalization, more women means more innovation and more creativity. So in this context, then African women have, as always, critical role to achieve a smart and green recovery in Africa in spite of the gender discriminatory practices. Post-COVID economic recovery should be this great opportunity to build on our strengths, to end with ill practices, and to find, as I said, a new pathway to the well-being of all and also the prosperity for all. At the African Union, other than the gender-focused through the gender activities of our specialized department, in infrastructure, we made sure that gender is mainstreamed in all our programs of infrastructure, and in the program for infrastructure development, this 10-year program that starts from 2021 to 2030, we prioritize projects which support women enterprises in the supply side of regional infrastructure sectors, meaning in procurement and procurement actions. We want to see women enterprises participating heavily in implementing the said projects. That goes, also hand in hand with many policies that we have developed to that end. So again, despite these obvious challenges, the coming months, not the coming years, the coming months will likely witness major changes. We have seen major changes happening almost overnight in 2020, and this will continue over the coming months. But also we will see convergence of fruitful outcomes of multiple moving parts. We will see the finalization of the text of the free trade area. Now there is wide vaccination and hopefully opening of economies. We will see more mature and faster digitalization and adoption of digitalization. This is the time when we must rise above the challenges and harness this opportunity. We need to ensure that women and indeed youth are front, back, and center of our new path, that the playing field is leveled for all, whether you are private, whether you are public, and that wealth creation and value-added employment and innovation is at everyone's reach. This will happen if we act now and also if we act together. And this is exactly the Africa we want. And I thank you.
أماني. دكتور يسري.
شكرا دكتورة أماني. يمكن أنا سعيد جدا بما قدمتيه، وتحديدا فيما يتعلق بالتحرك سويا داخل المجتمع الأفريقي، وأعتقد هذه دعوة هامة جدا، وأحد يعني أهم التوصيات أن نتحرك جميعا الآن هو دور يعني التعارف وتكامل. المرأة الأفريقية لها دور ودور مؤثر جدا. دعيني باسم المهندسة عبير لهيطة رئيس لجنة المرأة وباسم الجمعية أن نجري في نهاية هذا العام جائزة لأفضل 5 سيدات ورائدات أعمال في القارة الأفريقية ضمن ملف تمكين المرأة الأفريقية، على شرف حضورك، وإن شاء الله تحضري تسليم هذه الجائزة في نهاية هذا العام. وممكن أن نطلق عليها هي جائزة ملف البنية التحتية والطاقة، جائزة المفوضة الدكتورة أمانة أبو زيد مع جمعية رجال الأعمال المصرية الأفارقة إلى 5 رائدات أعمال من القارة الأفريقية وسيدات أعمال. وسوف نقيم حدث هام جدا لعل الله أن يزيح الكورونا ويكون هذا الحدث على الأرض في وجودك وفي وجود الاتحاد الأفريقي. شاكر جدا جدا حضورك لهذه الكلمة الجميلة المؤثرة والمعبرة عن دور المرأة الأفريقية في الملفات الهامة: تمكين المرأة، البنية التحتية، الطاقة، الرقمنة، السياحة. شكرا جزيلا.
أشكركم يا فندم على هذه الكلمة الجميلة وعلى هذا التقدير الرفيع، وأظن أن الجائزة يعني تسمى على اسم القارة وعلى اسم سيدات القارة. أظن في هذا تكريم لنا جميعا، وهذا ما نطمح إليه. وأشكركم مرة أخرى.
شكرا جزيلا.
شكرا دكتور أماني على الكلمات القيمة التي قمت سيادتك بتقديمها لنا، وبتوضيح الرؤى بالنسبة للسيدات العاملات في مجال التنمية الاقتصادية بالقارة الأفريقية. وشكرا دكتور يسري على هذه التنويه على هذه الجائزة في نهاية العام التي تكون تكريما للسيدات الرائدات في مجال التنمية الاقتصادية. والآن نبدأ الجلسة الأولى من الحلقة النقاشية الأولى بعنوان دور المرأة الأفريقية للوقوف على تحديات فيروس كورونا وأثر ذلك على التجارة البينية الأفريقية. وسيضم هذا اللقاء أو هذه الجلسة المهندسة عبير لهيطة رئيس مجلس الإدارة والعضو المنتدب بشركة إيجي ترانس، ورئيس لجنة المرأة بجمعية رجال الأعمال المصريين الأفارقة مصر، والسيدة باباتاستس S.H. جاكوي المدير التنفيذي لخدمات الموارد البشرية في شركة FO ريال وممثل ABA غانا. وأيضا معنا السيدة فيرا فاكور ألوماتو أجينيغا مؤسس فيرا كرياتيف مايند غانا. ومعنا أيضا المهندسة رندا حافظ التي تمثل قصة نجاح للمرأة المصرية في قطاع التشييد. فليتفضلنا.
Good evening from Cairo. I'm very happy to welcome you all to the first conference organized by the African Women's Committee of the Egyptian African Businessmen's Association. I'm honored to be here with such distinguished speakers and guests from across the continent. Recently, I have been reading a great deal about gender diversity and inclusion, particularly at the board, executive, and management levels, and particularly in industries like mine, which have always been traditionally dominated by men. As I sought to deepen my understanding of the situation in Africa, I was happy to learn that Africa performs relatively well on the global stage, with a higher than average percentage of women executives, CEOs, and board members. According to the World Economic Forum, African women hold 23% of C-level positions, compared to the global average of 20%. At the board level, African women hold 14% of seats, compared to a global average of 13%. But in spite of Africa's relatively positive position, there are 2 important issues we must consider. The first is how far we still have to go. While we tend to focus on the board and executive level, women are severely underrepresented in the formal economy and at every step of the corporate ladder, whether staff or middle or senior management. Why is that? The primary reasons are applicable to all of our nations. They include poverty and its impact on access to education, and of course, societal constraints. I would add to that access to technology in our digitized world. The second is the concerning fact that we have actually taken several steps backwards as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic and the ensuing changes in both our work and personal lives. With the closure of schools and the shift to working from home, the fine line that we as women have always tried to draw between personal and work domains has been crossed, and the path that many of us have so carefully plotted as we strive for career development has gone off on a tangent. Since the pandemic began, countless women have made the choice to retire from work or not to step forward into bigger roles. I say made the choice, but it would be more accurate to say that most of them have had to make the choice. This only emphasizes the continuing and pressing need to create a framework for gender equity that supports the needs of working women and adapts to the requirements of what is now being referred to as the new normal. There is still a considerable gap between where we are and where we need to be. Different initiatives have been adopted globally, and we will have to wait and see which ones are effective. However, the overriding concern remains that women, in many cases, create their own boundaries as a result of societal expectations. My company has recently taken the bold decision to launch a startup incubator focused on the transport and logistics industry. As we work on setting the strategy for this new initiative, we have been discussing ways to ensure that women are properly represented in the selection process, even though we know that we are operating in a sector that has always been a primarily male domain. The challenge is likely to be the hesitance of women themselves to apply based on their views of the industry as daunting or unwelcoming, their own self-perception and ingrained beliefs, and the surrounding cultural expectations that still persist. As attempts to encourage more women to step into entrepreneurial and leadership roles are made across our region, with regulators setting minimum targets for female representation at the board level, and companies taking measured actions to be more inclusive, progress is nevertheless slow. We must make a concerted effort to support these changes by ensuring that women receive the education and mentoring and financing they need, and by creating a conducive environment that supports women and lowers barriers to true equality. Even more importantly, we need to give them role models to aspire to, role models who will show them the potential future they can create for themselves, if only they are willing. The introduction of the African Continental Free Trade Area will create the biggest free trade area in the world, leading to significant growth in the participating nations' economies. We have a golden opportunity, and at the same time, a duty, to encourage and support African women at all levels to participate in and benefit equally from this growth. Otherwise, we would be severely limiting the transformative impact that the AFCFTA can potentially have on African development. According to McKinsey, although women account for more than 50% of Africa's population, they produce only 33% of GDP. If Africa succeeds in closing the gender gap, it could boost its collective GDP a whopping 10% by 2025. Without the full participation of half of the African population, we can, at best, only achieve half of what is possible. We have come a long way from how things were when I first entered the workforce. This can only be attributed to the brave steps that women have taken over generations to bring the subject of gender into the mainstream and address inequality in the workplace, at home, and even in government. I can see the results of this in the younger generation. My daughters are far less focused on the need to fight for gender equality because they see themselves as already equal. And on that basis, they act equal and consider their abilities and their rights as given. Seeing that, I feel proud and hopeful that the African women of the future will be prepared to step fully into their potential as leaders in business and in other arenas. And as chair of EABA's new African Women's Committee, I hope that you will join me in seeking constructive ways to achieve that dream. Thank you.
دكتورة جيلان وفقا للترتيب أعتقد بابتيستا. بابتيستا.
Good evening to everyone, and thank you for the opportunity. So for today, we're discussing the role of the African woman in promoting inter-regional trade post-COVID-19. I am grateful for the opportunity to be part of this conference and share some thoughts on the role of human resource in all this development agenda. So the whole discussion on the African Free Trade Continental Secretariat Agreement is something which is very important, as other speakers have already discussed, because this gives us that legal instrument to be able to trade, to create our one market. And AFTEC, I've been saying, it would represent so much more, because for us in Africa and for us Africans, it's really a very significant milestone journey to Africa's integration and development. And for us to be able to do more things, to be able to trade within Africa and the rest of the world, we need purposive and decisive actions to get that done. Because looking at the numbers, we have so many African countries coming together to do business. That is great. But beyond the numbers and the negotiations, I want to put forward that the realization of this promise would be based on decisive actions and collaborative efforts of the African people. So then, looking at the role of human resource, you and I would agree that HR plays a key role in one, our development, our reintegration, and the way we change cultures of an organization. And looking at the same thing for the African bloc, we could say that once we manage issues of pay, performance management, which I put up a lot of write-ups in that space, are letting people to come clearly and understand that performance management is not expected to be a vindictive process. It's supposed to be a coaching and mentoring tool that we use to groom our employees and help the organization achieve their best. We could resort to training and development, look at it from the whole onboarding process on how we could redefine the cultures of the organization and that of the African continent. So clearly, you and I would agree that for us to achieve that integrated, purposive, peaceful Africa agenda, all these must be driven by our own citizens. Yes, Africans must be able to tell the African story the African way. And why is that so? It is just because we can design and create and build all the wonderful things we want, but trust me, if we do not have the people, we cannot make that dream a reality. So talking about African trade, talking about inter-regional trade, you and I would agree that once we come to the subject of economic growth, two key things usually would come to play. How we can increase the quality and quantity of the factors of production. And since we have all these in abundance, what then do we look at? Looking at the two main sources of economic growth. First, growth in the size of the workforce, and then growth in productivity. So productivity, we shouldn't be pretending when we get to work as though we are working. Because if you are unable to work clearly to increase productivity, at the end of the day, the continent will still not grow. And the growth in the size of the workforce will come in when more people are able to create businesses. Entrepreneurs are able to pull up more business ideas, take that first step and make it a reality. So for us to increase the overall size of the economy, we need to all support this transformative agenda. Let's stop pretending we are working so that employers will also stop pretending they are paying us. Because at the end of the day, most people's take home are unable to take them home. And clearly this contributes to some of the reasons for which we have corruption and nepotism all increasing on the continent. And please join me as we make that bold pledge. Many Africans may be jobless right now, but trust me, they are not worthless. And as such, we need to learn to respect our people. So how then do we learn to tell the African story the African way? That complete Africanization of our body, soul, and mind is something we need to look at. We need to take this as a brand and treat it as such. So where do we begin this whole conversation from? When we talk about Africa, who are we as Africans? Where do we want to get to? How do we tell our own stories? So how many days in the week are we even allowed to put on our own fabric to our places of work? It begins from things as little as that. When we take up our educational materials, talk of the books our pupils use at school, what kind of icons or heroes are being printed on this exercise book? So purposively, if we make that plan to help make Africa what it is, we can get there. We need to start learning from the success stories of a lot of African countries. We can't reinvent the world at this time when information and access, it's all over the place. We should be able to learn to solve Africa's unemployment issues. One, identifying what I call the technical vocational education and training. That's a big tool we can use to pull up a lot more entrepreneurs into this space. Because if we're talking about one market where we want to get people to transport, infrastructure, and all that, we need those technical artisans to be able to support the agenda. So going forward, assuming this was a future of work discussion, you and I will come to that realization that we do not need degrees to be able to do a lot of the jobs we are doing now. So please be agile and support the agenda. Digitization of the future is something which is very important. A lot of jobs now are going online. That is how come we are having this very beautiful conference online, and we still would achieve the same purpose for it we need to. We need to start thinking local, but think global. We act local, but think global, because we are not competing just within ourselves. And I just want to share some success stories. For us in Ghana, we have our government pulling up something we call the Planting for Food and Jobs. And it is something which is helping to create employment for a lot of young people. So African countries, African governments should learn to collaborate at the highest level. So we learn from ourselves and pull up the success stories in what we do. We have the One District, One Factory program, which is also helping to create factories in every district. And as such, we employ the people within that community to help. We have the National Builders Corp, which we call in Ghana as the NAPCO, a government initiative also helping to address graduate unemployment. So issues of social problems could be alleviated. So looking at a bigger conversation, assuming the African Free Trade Continental Secretariat is being implemented in its full force, we are told that this will represent a major opportunities for countries to boost growth. It will help reduce unemployment. It will broaden the economic inclusion of the continent. And let's look at what the World Bank puts out forward to. We are told 30 million Africans can be lifted out of extreme poverty. And this is good news. If you're able to implement this whole agenda very well, we'll be able to boost Africa's income by 450 billion by the year 2035, a gain of 7% increase, which is just marvelous. We'll be able to increase Africa's exports, mostly manufacturing, by 560 billion US dollars. And to achieve the inclusion of equal work for equal pay, we would shoot the larger wage gains for women. Unlike before, we have men, and even now, most men would still be paid more irrespective of the fact that women also work equally. But for us, we want to put out clearly that for us to achieve that full inclusion, where women can support to push the Intercontinental Free Trade Agreement, as well as intercontinental trade post-COVID-19, we have to make that purposive agenda to support women, because women and youth represent vast majority of the population. And we should be able to boost wages for both the skilled and unskilled work. Whether you find yourself in a white-collar job or you are in the informal sector, the whole agenda of the African Free Trade Continental Secretariat should help us achieve this fate clearly. And moving forward, you and I will agree that for us to help elevate people from extreme poverty, a lot of milestones will be achieved. And as such, let's look at still what the World Bank puts forward. That West Africa will see the biggest decline in the number of people living in extreme poverty, a decline of 12 million, which is more than 1/3 of the total of all Africans. Let's look at Central Africa. There will be a decline of 9.3 million. Eastern Africa, 4.8 million. Southern Africa, 3.9 million. And a lot of these countries with the highest initial poverty rate will see the biggest decline. And I pull up this especially for these three countries because they represent significant growth if you're able to pull this up clearly. Guinea-Bissau will see a rate of the current 37.9 to 27.7. And in Mali, we will see 14.4% to 6.8. In Togo, there would be a decline from 24.1 to 16.9%. And it's just a welcome news for us. So you and I should come to that realization that though a few sectors will still lose jobs, our governments at the highest level need to be prepared to support workers with adequate safety nets and policies that will help us retain workers. If not, this whole song we're singing about one market agenda may not get us to that final destination. Because like I said, we have the big dreams, we have all we hope to achieve, but if we do not have people in their adequate numbers, we cannot achieve that conversation. So for us as entrepreneurs, for us in government, we should be able to design policies that will increase the readiness of our workforce to take advantage of new positions. Let me just make a clearer example here. Assuming we're having a conversation about policies, you know, as career women, once you get married and you are still in jobs, you cannot put your job on hold and say, oh, for the next 2 years, I'm doing family. After family, I'm getting to do career. After career, I'm getting to do self-actualization. Whilst I get back to school, it is just not that way. Women will have to learn to pull the bits and pieces together at each point to get to that level. So we need to make purposive policies that will be targeted at supporting women and the youth to excel. If not, then this whole agenda may not really work because women represent majority of the workforce. So that if I should pull up the conversation right now, asking, what is the duration of the maternity leave policies we have in our country? I'm sure we may not help end this conference today. And perhaps this may be a conversation for another day. I have pulled up some research in that space, and it is very interesting to know that the duration we offer for maternity leave goes to support not just the mother and the baby, it supports the business, it supports governments as well. So giving that universal access is something we all need, and it will help us clearly achieve that agenda. So making that attempt, that jobs will be getting online and people would have to make that effort to make themselves available. We need to also remove barriers that prevent smaller firms from competing in the same digital space. Because if young people are able to pull up businesses, then they would at some point need extra hands, and that is how we would increase the fortunes of the continent. So the continents must focus on digital transformational strategy, and this will help us to achieve what we call the Agenda 2063 as put forward by the African Union. So thank you so much for the opportunity. In wrapping up, I would want to say that we need purposive policy measures and investment to help our women and the youth, being majority of the population, to stand out clearly. And for us to get to that recovery state post-COVID-19 that will create that African and enhance resilience, all blocks, we need to support trade and make sure that all types of goods and services we're supporting will help us to achieve that sustainable growth. But in ending all these, irrespective of the participation,
thanks, Mrs. Papatesta.
Irrespective of all we do, we can achieve all this clearly when we support women.
Mrs. Papatesta, thank you. Thank you.
I'm grateful. Thank you.
Thank you for you. Thank you. Now is the turn for Mrs. Vera Vakor. The mic is with you.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Welcome.
I would talk on the investment and business opportunities for business women in West Africa and their role in supporting intra-African trade. I always say that Africa is a blessed continent, and as women, we are blessed to be in it. In the past decade, Africa has seen the highest growth among businesses run by women, contributing to the crucial need for job creation and economic growth on the continent. A large quantum of Africa's economic activity is in the hands of women. The UNDP indicates that between a quarter and a third of formal sector businesses in Africa are owned and operated by women. On the flip side, however, is that the businesses run by these women face threats of stagnation and failure. This is not because the women are bad entrepreneurs, no. Instead, it's because they often start at a lower base. They have less startup and investment capital and possess little or no collateral security. This limits access to loans and credit, compounded by their exclusion from certain sectors because of the huge investment involved in it. We also see that when it comes to sales, number of employees, revenue, and productivity, women-owned businesses in developing countries tend to be smaller in size and grow more slowly than those run by men. Yet, research shows that women-owned businesses are equally efficient and growth-oriented as male-owned businesses. In West African societies, entrepreneurship begins from small-scale businesses and migrate into medium and then to large scales. Though several motives can be attributed to the reasons why women engage in businesses in West Africa, the success rate largely depends on oneself, family, environmental factors, as well as government policies. Yes, there are so many bright businesses and investment opportunities on the African continent. All we have to do as women is to identify these opportunities and take advantage of them. We have some of the ready entry points to the West Africa economy as the agriculture and agro-processing, education, information and technology, health, recreation and tourism, manufacturing, petroleum, oil and gas, and then the financial sector. When we come to agriculture, in West Africa, a significant number of populations' livelihood depends on this sector, which is the agriculture sector, making it one of West Africa's major preserve for wealth creation. And this mainly consists of crop and livestock farming, fishing, and forestry. We are blessed to have vast green land, abundant rainfall, and suitable climate conditions, which make it perfect for commercial farming of all kinds of crops. We can consider investing in vegetables, grains, tropical fruit, etc. Cocoa, cashew, and shea nut are known to be generating millions in revenue to the West African continent. Various governments have put in place incentives, initiatives to support the growth of this sector. In Ghana, for example, they subsidize fertilizers, they give them, buy equipment for them, and then they also give them some soft loans to, start investing in their start business at the agricultural sector. These are some of the interventions that the Ghana government have put in place for women who want to venture into agriculture. Now let's talk about the education. Women are known to be educators. Great opportunities lie in this sector for us to support the various governments to meet the infrastructural and educational resource needs of the population. Information technology, ICT, information communication technology, is currently an integral part of the nation's economic transformation. This sector is made up of various players. We are talking about telecommunication service. We are talking about internet service providers. We are talking about software manufacturers, broadcast institutions, ICT education providers, etc. This sector is growing very fast in the sub-Saharan region and is also creating the opportunity for us to easily trade online among each other. We talk about health. The healthcare market remains one of the most attractive markets in Africa for investment. COVID has proven to all of us to pay attention to our health tech sector. Huge opportunities exist to help develop more robust healthcare system. Let's also look at the recreation and tourism. The sub-Saharan regions are endowed with breathtaking landscapes, variety of wildlife, and rich cultural historical heritage. According to the World Trade and Tourism Council, the tourism sector will employ up to 746,400 people by the year 2019. This drive will largely increase infrastructural investment, hospitable population, improve internet services, and as well as reasonable cost of living. Significant opportunity exists here in the various segments such as ecotourism, cultural tourism, health tourism, and educational tourism for potential investors.
Excuse me, Mrs. Vera,
Manufacturing remains the
You have 2 minutes.
Manufacturing. All right, manufacturing, oil and gas, financial sector, and the property development sector are all opportunities that we can look at. Now, how do we assess these opportunities? The good news here is that we have investment promotions, mentoring establishment in each country, each West Africa country, each Africa country. We all have these investment promotion councils, investment and mentoring establishments who are ever ready to support us. Example, in Ghana, we have the Ghana Investment Promotion Council, we have the Ghana Export Promotion Authority, we have MASLOC. All these institutions are available to support women, you know, in diverse ways to invest in West Africa. Thank you.
Thank you, welcome. والآن معنا مهندسة رندا حافظ. تفضلي مع حضرتك 10 دقائق.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rhonda Harpers. I am the co-founder and owner of Conserve General Contractors. I am a member of IABA. I'm proud to be. And I would like to thank Dr. Yusri Sharqawi, Chairman, and my fellow members of the association for giving me the opportunity to share with you my experience as a female entrepreneur. Hoping my story would be a building block in creating a platform across Africa for exchanging expertise, information, and trade. I am an electrical engineer who graduated more than 30 years ago with honors, destined to lead an academic career, which was deemed to be a very suitable career for a female in this field. I surprised everybody by choosing to join the startup business of my family. In 1987, I found a small construction firm that specialized in quality finishing works. Over the years, my company, Conserve, grew to be a full-fledged general contracting firm with more than 170 permanent employees, a joinery factory, and more than 300 successfully completed turnkey projects. Offering the full scope of services, starting from construction, finishing, electromechanical works, and fit out of many distinguished buildings all over the country. Our projects encompass hospitals, educational facilities, office buildings, embassies, industrial complexes, residential compounds, retail outlets, and many others, always maintaining emphasis on two main values, quality and integrity. The construction of a new modern building and additional classrooms on the land of the British Council in Cairo, in addition to the intricate restoration of the existing historical building, still stand today overlooking the Nile, a testament to a line of successful projects. After more than 30 years of hard work, Conserve stands today with a solid reputation, a company that offers equal opportunities to professionals of different genders, religions, and races, a company to be proud of. The story I have just told, and you have all heard, is a common story that could be told by many of my fellow male colleagues. The groundbreaking part in this story is the fact that it is being told by a female. In a continent like ours, Africa, where gender inequality, socially, economically, and politically is clearly visible, where as per the UNDP, women earn only 77 cents for every dollar that men get for the same work. In our male-dominated industry, women repeatedly proved themselves and acquired recognition and credibility in the area of design and consultancy, where many women own, manage, and work in design houses in all engineering specialties. On the other hand, very few women could claim similar success in the field of construction. Being a woman who owns, runs, and represents a construction firm required triple the commitment, effort, and dedication of any other career I would have chosen to pursue. 30 years ago, a young female engineer had to fight every step of the way to prove her worth and her company's ability to perform equally. This struggle was both internal with her team to assert leadership in a very different way to the norms of the industry, and externally with the clients and all the other arms of the construction process. Today, there are more and more women joining this rigid and male-dominated field, not as many as I would like to see and meet, but it is slowly happening, and our society is realizing the values and worth we bring to this tough industry as females. I attend many meetings and conventions where I am the only woman present. Yet nowadays, this has become a point of strength, not weakness. Finally, my greatest achievement will always be raising 2 successful children who did not suffer from my choice of a career. On the contrary, they developed a strong character and a stamina that allowed them to venture into unpaved paths, exerting the required efforts without any inhibition and succeeding against all odds. At the end, I hope everyone stays safe and sound during these difficult times due to the pandemic. And I look forward to joining arms with my fellow colleagues to help further develop our beloved continent of Africa and bring it forward to take its rightful place in the world. Thank you all.
شكرا مهندسة رندا لالتزام حضرتك بالوقت وأقل من الوقت، والآن يعني نشكر السادة الحضور على الالتزام جميعا بالوقت. والآن ننتقل إلى الحلقة الثانية من الجلسة النقاشية، وهي تدور حول سبل الدعم لإنجاح رائدات الأعمال الأفريقيات واستعراض بعض النجاح وقصص النجاح. معنا في هذه الجلسة السيدة لويدا توم، مالك ومدير شركة جانيسيس لايف ستايل هولندا، السيدة ريكا يافاوا، مؤسس شركة مويرة المحترفة للمراجعة والتدقيق غانا، والسيدة توسن سوسانيا الرئيس التنفيذي لشركة اياسكو نيجيريا، والسيدة ديموكاسو مالولا الرئيس التنفيذي لشركة هاوس اوف ذا ليسيسي ورئيسة Women of Value Africa. فليتفضل.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi,
yes.
Lisa.
Thank you very much, Dr. Linian, for giving me the opportunity. Thank you for the privilege. Today, I just want to share my story and the activity and opportunities in non-traditional areas of business. And I believe that it will encourage someone and it will, gear someone up to pursue and to press on. I come from a family of international traders. My mother was an example and a role model at an early age. She was exporting African produce to Canada, America, UK, and Europe. She would import processed food like flour, tin tomatoes, biscuits, drinks to Ghana. She later on expanded based on what the market demanded, importing mother care and household goods from all parts of the world to Ghana. In the 80s, this was not very common. For an African woman to do, it was very challenging. There were so many gender barriers and challenges, but through it all, she persevered with full support of her family. In fact, my great-grandmother and my grandmother were all traders, and they were very supportive to my mother. They were her support system and her mentor. My mother as a role model inspired me and transferred knowledge at an early age to take over the family business by sending me to the United Kingdom to further my education in business studies. This, I believe, was a preparation process and a grooming process to take over the family business for the future. In 2003, I graduated and pursued to work for one of UK's largest supermarkets as a front-end manager. This experience helped me to know the UK market very well and what the consumer demanded. Then the exporting of fruits to the UK started. The local suppliers were not meeting up the UK quality standards, so I ventured into growing fruits ourselves. To be specific, pineapples and mangoes. The supply could not meet the demand. We included other grower groups, which were mainly women, whom we educated and financially supported to ascertain their certifications that would allow us to export to the United Kingdom. This carried on until the pandemic, March 2020. There was a drastic decrease in supply and left us with surplus. This surplus caused us to birth a company called Genesis Lifestyle. Genesis Lifestyle, the company was established to nourish the body and the body of man and women in the future generation. So we started using what we couldn't sell in making cosmetic products. What best way to sell? No one was able to meet each other, so we had to go online. We ventured our business solely on digital online marketing, providing opportunities to generate sustainability for myself and my stakeholders and healthy lifestyle to customers internationally. This is one of the ways that Genesis Lifestyle looks at sustainability. Genesis Lifestyle, its product directly to consumers online worldwide by using various international logistic companies through air, sea, and land. But it had recruited and continues to franchise and recruit suitable regional independent distributors and consultants, mainly women, to represent themselves under our umbrella. The company also offered any African-based business with common values to trade their products and services on our online platform. As everything is moving as fast-paced, innovation is key. However, it's always good to keep the focus of the business. And based on my experience, I totally agree with the finding of Gender Innovation Lab, which shows that women run business in non-traditional sectors. They generally report better results in terms of turnover and profitability. Activities that the non-traditional area consistently have to operate. Knowing and understanding the market that you're in. Each country has its culture, lifestyle, and ways of working. Therefore, you will need a representative or a partner in each country to help you understand and to be able to operate swiftly in the country you're operating in. Knowing your product very well will make you the best advocate for your product. Being the best advocate for your product and knowing the product will help you build confidence in the product, and you will be able to sell or even trade it easily. These are the things that Genesis Lifestyle took into consideration. And so we looked at what made us stand out. The only thing that we could tell our potential suppliers or potential customers was that all our products were organic and certified, and it was being operated 90% women. Genesis Lifestyle uses the surplus of their farm produce. This encouraged me to engage women in the diaspora who are with African descent to venture into agriculture. We call us women in farming. This was one of the reasons why I enjoyed the pandemic, because I was able to speak to women and to encourage them not to lose hope, but to look at what is out there at large. What are the demands? What are the opportunities to grasp during the pandemic?
Mrs. Louisa, you kindly have 3 minutes.
Yes,
3
sure.
minutes. Thank
Sure.
you.
Marketing and promoting your product, you need to look at, the digital market. This is very important. Engage yourself in social media learning, understand the social media world, leverage your social network, ensure that, you are able to get people to understand what you're looking at, and also presenting and displaying your product at different fairs, conferences, trade fairs, and places of interest. Dealing with logistics and customs, each country has its rules and regulations. Therefore, I would encourage you to understand the rules and regulations in each country that you operate in. The opportunities, there are so many opportunities in the markets now. There's so many opportunities. We have She Trade, WTO, WIIT. There's so many different organizations promoting and helping women grow and being able to expand in the trade and inter-trade market. What are the key takeaways? I believe that you have to be persistent, have trustful partners, attend conferences, trade fairs, seminars, and webinars. Social responsibility, always give back to the community, get the community involved with you. Know your market, train yourself in digital marketing, and above all, excellence. Do everything at your best. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Louisa. Now it's the turn for Mrs. Rita Yapawa. Mrs. Rita.
Yeah, I'm here.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies. I thank the organization for this opportunity. And my main topic for discussion is foundation and the means of success for African women entrepreneurs in micro enterprises and the importance of that in enhancing intra-African trade. We are going to look at four key areas here to consider. We have job categories and the micro enterprises. We have foundations, we have the means of success, and the importance of micro enterprises in enhancing intra-African trade. We could see a farmer here, which is a woman. We can see a welder, a mechanic going on. We can see a carpenter, a street vendor. We have weavers. We have a lot more people that are into micro enterprises in Africa. How do you start a business? How do you do it? What comes with it? It all starts with an idea. That's a foundation. We have a lot of ideas going through your mind. This is what I want to do. That is what I want to do. Would I be able to sell to the market? What exactly is it you want to do? So you have a lot of things and you need to narrow it down. Narrowing it down, you definitely come to a point where you realize that, oh, this is what I would want to venture in. So there comes to asking of the questions. So these are some questions to ask yourself. What is my passion in life? What drives you? What do you want to achieve? Why pursue that passion? What are your dreams or future expectations? Cost of pursuing that dream or passion? Are there resources available for you to be able to pursue that passion? The market for you to do. The world don't care about what you know. What the world cares about is what you know and what you do with it. If you know it, it's just to yourself, but what you are able to do with it is what the world is looking out for. So do you have a skill? Can you solve a problem? Can you be innovative? COVID has taught us to be very innovative when it comes to trade in every aspect of it. So these are some of the questions you need to ask yourself. Due to time, you're going to just limit ourselves. We move on to the next slide, which is about making the bold step. Having the ideas, narrowing all the ideas you have into one particular box, asking all the necessary questions you need to ask yourself. That is when you make the bold step. If you don't make that bold step, at the end of the day, what happens? Your ideas are stuck with you. You can't solve that problem. That creativity cannot be seen by the world. So what you need to do is to take the bold step. There's a saying that goes, a million mile begins with a step. So you need to get out of your comfort zone. Tell yourself it's time for change and make that step. That is the beginning of changing situations. How do you do it? Is it about going to school that is acquiring formal or informal training? Is it about acquiring a skill from apprenticeship? Knowledge now is free online. Whatever information you want to know about, all you need to do is to click a button, seek for information online, talk to people, get mentors, either in the same field or similar field, because I believe the African woman has got a lot of potential that is yet to be harnessed by the African continent. So in order to acquire all these things, you need to talk to people. After acquiring the information, after taking all the necessary courses you need to take, speaking to the right people, the most important thing is get people who are already in the field, who have taken the lead, who are owning businesses. Talk to them. Talking to them helps you to grow your business as well. And resources available. Most of it, we always talk about capital, starting a business. Oh, we don't have money. I don't have that money. I don't have that amount. But mostly comes from family and friends. The resources, Africa is blessed with a lot of natural resources. So what are the resources available to us in Africa? So resources available to you can be turned to something else. The speaker before myself realized that there were surpluses when COVID hit. So she thought about going into the production of cosmetics with the surpluses she had. So she thought about it and moved into something else. So these are the things we should be able to look at. The next means of success. After getting all that you need to do, the resources and have everything, you need to start growing. You just don't start a business and in that small corner, because it's a micro enterprise. You have to look at growing. So you look at your network, the size, the diversity and focus of your network, which is very key and very important. We are talking about digitalization. Yes, you need to use social media in selling your products. A lot of social media handles are at our disposal. A lot of organizations that you can join. You can look at family and friends, start a business, talk to family and friends, sell the services, sell the product to them, get their ideas, tell them to help you, market the product, and they will do that. Exhibitions. Starting a small business, you need to look at exhibitions. So you start small and you grow. You just don't start small and want to hit big. No, you start small, gradually you grow. So you work on integrity when it comes to that. You look at legalizing the business as well. So your registration comes in here. Ask and join the right association to seek new information and idea. Example, we have Ghana Chambers of Commerce. You join them, there are sub association there that you can join to share ideas. The world is evolving each and every day. Do not work in isolation. Get connected to somebody. Okay, and then the importance of African enterprise in enhancement. We have the African woman can promote trade by just a click of a button. Her clients are not just her family and friends, but her country, the African continent, and the world. When she's able to do that, she promotes sustainability, sustainable development, helps the economy to grow, create employment, reduce poverty, looking at the limited skills and education to compete in the formal sector jobs. Women find economic opportunities and micro enterprises as business owners and employees, adding value to themselves, family, and the local economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rita. Now it's the turn for Mrs. Tassin. The mic is with you. Mrs. Tassin.
Okay, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Okay, can I have my slides, please?
You can share it.
Okay.
You see the option more? There are 3 digits, 3 points. You can click on them and then, yes, you can stop. Thank you.
Okay.
10 minutes from now, Mrs. Tassin, please.
Okay, I would like to just put this in view mode, if that can happen. Okay. Sorry, just give me a minute. Trying to sort some stuff out.
Go to more,
Okay.
click it. Select share.
Yeah, can you see my screen?
Yes,
can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Okay, so importance of African women's participation in export sectors within the African continent to promote bilateral trade, Nigeria and West African experiences. My name is Shusaya. I'm a speaker, a trainer, a personal development coach. I'm personally working on building an alternative education system that is going to be technologically empowered, and I'm looking for partners to collaborate with me on this. Okay, so I would like to start by saying that Africa is rising. And I would like to build on all of what the other speakers before me have said. But just to reiterate, AFCFTA provides a market of about $3.5 trillion, gives us an opportunity and access to a population of 1.3 billion people, compared with 200 million people in Nigeria, if you were to be doing business in Nigeria alone. The export is about $500 billion, compared with $50 billion that Nigeria does per annum. Nigeria does just about 1/10 of all that Africa does. But with AFCFTA, we have access to this massive amount of export business. And at the end of the day, Africa becomes the largest economy in Africa, not just Nigeria. But I'd like to also tell you the tale of these 3 Nigerian women who have thrived, who are succeeding in spite of all odds, to encourage somebody's heart here today. First, I'd like to start with Nike Davis Okunade. She owns the Nike Art Gallery, a business she started with just 1 shilling. Yes, just 1 shilling. But today, Quest of CNN has come to interview her. Today, she exports to UK, to the US, and she has the biggest art gallery in the whole of Africa. I have Amal Hassan, who is acing the global trend of exporting services, because many times when we talk about export, a lot of us think of goods. We do not think of services. But I'm letting women in Nigeria, West Africa, and the whole world know that there's a very vast opportunity for us in exporting services, which Amal Hassan, the CEO of Outsource Global, has demonstrated clearly for us. She is the first African company to have the ISO Global certification in her regard. She's widely celebrated, and she's helping companies across the world to expand their territories by recruiting the extra staff that they need. Now, let me talk about Nelly Ndaguba. She's the president of African Shea Butter Development Initiative, and I'd like to dwell here a bit. Nigeria alone has 57% of shea trees in the whole world. in the whole world. So the rest of the world shares of 43%. But it is largely underutilized. Why? Because our government has not seen the beauty and the amount of resources and wealth that can be harnessed from shea, from processing shea. And a lot of this wealth, that is this potential wealth, is being carted away from people in the Asian countries and paying pittance to our people in the villages, in the communities, because they just want to survive. The customs allow them to get away with it because they don't even know what shea is or the value it has. At this point, we like to call that the government steps in, not just in the shea industry, but in other agro products, and let them know that there is vast wealth that is yet to be untapped beyond oil, beyond petroleum, if the right regulations can be put in place. If our women in the rural communities can be supported with the right training and with the right technology that is required for the right handling and processing. When you go to these villages where these agricultural produces and farm produce are being cultivated, you see young girls who are the vast majority of workers that work on these fields with teenage pregnancies, feeding trash to the children, to these children that were born prematurely most times. And then the chain of poverty continues. There's a need for us to move beyond celebrating trade across Africa, to look at the grassroots where these products are actually coming from and how to make their lives better. There are opportunities and there are challenges. One of the opportunities we have, which I like to call made in Aba but sold in Italy, is the fact that we are so blessed with skills, with people who are very skilled in Nigeria, who are very specialized in their trade. A very good suit is being made in a place called Aba in Nigeria. But these white people come, take it to Italy, brand it, and we Nigerians take our hard-earned naira converted to dollars to buy this same suit. I'm saying this to let us know that there is a need for us to celebrate our own products. And how does it become celebrated? By adding value to it. If it's in the place of packaging, if it's in the place of handling, we need to add value to what we already have so that it comes to the world-class standard that we love to be associated with. If we begin to embrace AFCFTA the way it should be, our traders, our farmers, our exporters, we have exposure to international best practices. Poverty will be reduced drastically, and there will be reduction of multi-layer taxation because AFCFTA helps to remove tariffs to at least up to 90%. More women are empowered and the gender equality gap shrinks. And you know that when you empower a woman, you empower a family because she will train her children.
You have 3 minutes. You have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you.
Welcome.
All right, so finally, I'd like for us to adapt the 3 hours, the first of which I call the re-engineered mindset. Let's stop thinking and saying they won't permit me. Who are the they? How about you give yourself some permission to shine? Yes, there are going to be challenges, but you can go through it. Remember, when you shine, you give other people the permission to shine as well. The second R is resilience. It's time to use the strength, not just to adapt to uncomfortable situations, but not just to survive, but to thrive through hard work and honesty and harness every opportunity that comes our way. And the third R is resourcefulness. Just as women in Nigeria, we know how to make a pot of delicious Nigerian jollof rice, whether as a concoction or from whatever the pantry provides, or native rice with palm oil, or the continental standard with all kinds of assorted seafood. They all come out excellently delicious. How do I know? Ask the children who promised to buy you an aeroplane when they are done eating, and even ask for more. So I like to round up by saying that we are African women. We make magic happen. We will make AFCFTA thrive. We will make exports in Africa thrive. We will because we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Dawson. Now it's the turn for Mrs. Damakatsu. Mrs. Damakato, please.
Good evening, everyone. My topic is on creating a favorable trading environment for African women through transformation programs. Our agenda is to create an ecosystem platform for women enterprises by collaborating with government, private sector institutions, local and international organizations to deal with inequalities and imbalances within the economic sphere, particularly in the regional value chain. Good evening, everyone. My name is Dimakato Malwela from South Africa. I am the founder of House of Delicacy, which is a non-alcoholic wine housing brand in South Africa, as well as the president for Women of Value in Africa. The underlying challenges that are faced by women in the entrepreneur space is the lack of information, whereby without information, we are not able to identify opportunities within our continent and even within our countries. So there is a time that we need to look at the information that we need to be able to thrive within our different enterprises. Fragmented structures where all the key stakeholders, they are not working together, or we don't know where the other one is pulling in. So we need to understand that the private sector, the public sector, as well as other institutions, they need to come together with all their resources, also the information that they can share to be able to develop women enterprises. Industry knowledge and expertise, that is one of the things that women, they need to be skilled enough. They need mentorship and coaching in different industries that they need to venture in. We do understand that with other sectors, they've been like mostly male-dominated sectors, which women, they also need to take an advantage of. And when we come to the access to market, we always say without a market, if you've got a business, there's no way that you can be able to sustain your business or grow. So we need to access the market. But the challenges that we face at times for us to be able to access that market, it is also on the product development, whereby most of women businesses, they are not their product, they are not skilled enough to understand that the packaging and the image of their product is equally important. Before someone buys the content of your product, they buy the image of your product instead. And when we talk about, I think most of the speakers, they did touch based on the fourth industrial revolution, where we're talking about the digital marketing to say, how can women take an advantage of the online as well as the social media marketing their products. And we also talk about the access to funding. We do understand that most of the businesses of women, I think one of the speakers even started with that one to say, most of the businesses, they are struggling with the access to funding. And if I don't have funds enough to fund my business, it's also very difficult for me to be able, to stock up, even maybe to leverage on what I already have. But the issue here is to also to look at the way to address these underlying issues. And we're talking about the enterprise and supply development. I think in South Africa, this is one of the programs that our government, together with the private sector, have been engaging more on it, building the ecosystem environment where we bring together all the key stakeholders to look at developing the startups, developing the cooperatives as well as the SMMEs, especially focusing on women and youth, whereby within that startup incubator programs, we look at different interventions that are going to help those women enterprises to be able to grow and to become sustainable. When we talk about the business accelerators program, we're talking about those programs that will be focusing more on the businesses that are already in the space, that they are ready, they are packaging the product. And when you look at even their compliance, it's in place. So how about looking at leveraging on the African Continental Free Trade area as the agreement that is in place already, and even other areas that we can look at and leverage on. The strategic events, including the AU Pan-African Women's Day, of which our organization has signed that MOU with the APRM within the AU to work together on Pan-African Women's Day, where we are looking at that platform as, talking about the trade and investment opportunities within the continent. Also our leadership, to have that opportunity to discuss the issues around the development of women enterprises, as well as the summits and expos whereby the products of women and services. We also need to encourage our women to also leverage on the sector's value chain. You look at the sector like tourism. When you look at the tourism value chain, there are many other industries that are linked to this sector, of which women can be able to leverage on, but they need to be exposed so that they can be able to tap on the opportunities that are already there. What are the proposed recommendations? I would say let us lobby government and other key stakeholders, which includes all the international organizations, the policies and decisions that advances economic inclusiveness in the region. And we should also work together to create and coordinate platforms for networking, showcasing the beauty, the cultures, the products of women-owned enterprises, products, and expanding women businesses horizons. We also need to explore the development of the trade platforms to enable smooth transaction, because without the platforms, it's not easy for us to start trading amongst ourselves, and also the monitoring and evaluation mechanism for the implementation of the agreement across the continent. Yes, we do understand that there are policies, beautiful policies, there are agreements now that have been signed, but in most cases, we don't really see the results of where are we going and how are we doing out of that. And I would also recommend that we need to have the follow-up meetings after this kind of engagements, after this conference. I encourage the participants, even our esteemed guests, to look at the way of how we can be able to leverage on this platform going forward, and having the feedback sessions to say how far we have gone since we met on this platform today, because EABA, they really have created a great platform for us. And I would also like to encourage partnership amongst women enterprises within Africa. I thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Damakatsu. شكرا لكم جميعا على التزام حضراتكم بالوقت وعلى المعلومات المفيدة الخاصة بالمشروعات التي قمتم بها من أجل تنمية القارة الأفريقية. والآن سنبدأ الحلقة النقاشية الثانية، والتي سيتم مناقشة محور مهم، ألا وهو دور المصارف والمؤسسات المالية لدعم الاستثمارات الأفريقية وتنمية التجارة البينية فيما بعد كورونا. وسيضم هذه الجلسة النقاشية الأستاذة الدكتورة فاطمة الحملاوي، مدرس الاقتصاد بمركز بحوث العلاقات الدولية بمعهد التخطيط القومي، السيدة آن وامباي المدير التنفيذي لمجموعة رجال أفريقيا كينيا، السيدة جيفتي أجامانج الرئيس التنفيذي مزارع الندى الطازغة ومؤلفة أيضا. فليبدأنا النقاش. دكتورة فاطمة.
Yes. Good evening, everybody. Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Welcome.
مع حضرتك 10 دقايق دلوقتي إن شاء الله. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First of all, I'd like to thank the Egyptian African Businessmen Association under the chairmanship by Dr. Yusri Sharqawi for giving me this opportunity to participate in this important conference with these elite African ladies, and I'm pleased to talk about this topic. Please, next. Mr. Muhammad, next slide, please. And starting with the first point, which is about the challenges facing international investments and intra-African trade. The next slide. At the African level, there are several risks that affecting the inflows of international investment and intra-African trade, which are number one, the weak physical and logistical infrastructure in Africa. And in order to move up the value chain, the continent will need further reform and mobilization. Number two is the overpopulation and low-skilled labor force, and the limited African manufacturing capabilities, which makes the African countries relatively unable to meet the needs of each other. Also, the intra-African trade is based on the exchange of African natural resources in a raw form with unfair prices, which is a major challenge for transnational corporations. The problem of low prices for the raw materials has been further aggravated after the COVID-19 pandemic also. And number five is about the important economic bodies of the African Free Trade Area, which have not yet taken place. For example, despite choosing Abuja as the headquarters of the central bank and Tripoli as the headquarters of the investment bank, and the Yaoundé as the headquarters of IMF, but these institutions have not yet been established, as far as I know. Number six, there are also other challenges related to the payment system, and here the currency crisis appears, as most African currencies cannot be dealt outside their countries, but efforts are underway to develop a suitable payment system. What happened after COVID-19 and how COVID-19 pandemic is impacting Africa? Let us first take a look at the African exposure to COVID-19. As with every region of the world, the first cases of the coronavirus in Africa came from exposure to international contexts like travel, trade, tourism, or business. And as you see, African countries with the greatest level of international contact, such as Egypt, Morocco, Nigeria, and South Africa, were among the hardest hit in the early stage of this crisis. Also, we can see three main challenges for Africa in this crisis. First, the health challenge and survival through the pandemic. Second, the macroeconomic challenge, where many African countries are unable to deliver the type of physical response that the UK, for example, or the US can. And thirdly, the livelihood challenge, which means the job losses, especially in the informal sector. It seems clear that the COVID-19 pandemic has arrived in Africa first as an economic crisis, then as a health crisis. But the health crisis arrived first elsewhere, like in China, Europe, and the United States. And the shock wave of the shattering of those those economies reached African countries before the full force of the virus did. But in general, coronavirus pandemic has significantly impacted the global economy with flows of foreign direct investments being disrupted as a result. And the consequences of global FDI contraction could be more serious for African countries. Also, the economic growth is declining across the continent, and it has negative growth of 3% in some places. Next slide, please. The IMF has projected the regional GDP of Sub-Saharan Africa to decline by 3.2% compared to previously projected growth of 3.6%, which means that there is a considerable negative swing of about 7%. And in some countries, the economic downturn has been even more pronounced. For example, the IMF has projected the declining of 8% in South Africa. And as we talked in brief about the challenges and consequences resulting from coronavirus pandemic in Africa, we will now talk about the opportunities inherent in this pandemic, which African countries should exploit to strengthen intra-African trade links. Because, as you know, every dark cloud has a silver lining. So, what COVID-19 means for Africa? Challenges, yes, but also there are opportunities. For example, there is an opportunity to exploit the challenges in global value chains, leapfrog in the implementation of digital solutions and innovation, and aggressive investment in renewable energy technology. Africa is uniquely positioned to further leverage and reach agricultural resources by improving basic infrastructure and efficiency and agribusiness capacity. And more resources will be needed for strengthening the public sectors with support of development partners. Another positive signal is the resilience shown by the intra-African trade compared to trade with the rest of the world, despite the low share of the African trade with other continents. The African Continental Free Trade Area has a great potential to support the African economic growth through more effective internal and intra-African trade in the future. This figure, as you show, shows the small size of intra-regional trade in Africa compared with other regions, and the lower trade linkage of Africa with the rest of the world when compared with other regions. You can note that the size of each node is proportional to each region's trade flow, and the width of each link reflects the trade values, and the color of the link corresponds to that of the exporting region. For example, you can see that Asia and Europe are the most exporting continents.
دكتورة فاطمة مع حضرتك 3 دقايق.
Okay, I skip. Thank you. Okay. I skip it to the next slide to talk about the opportunities. To talk about the policy recommendations. The last slide is answering a question. What are the policies that African economies must provide to take advantage of the opportunities presented by coronavirus pandemic and to mitigate the negative effects of FDI contraction? Or in other words, what should African countries do? I don't know if time will allow me to present the recommendations at the end of the conference, so I'll refer to them quickly to give other panels to the opportunity within the available time. So number one of the recommendations is that African countries must operate within their regions by sharing information and best practices, measures and supportive mechanisms to help local firms overcome supply side constraints must be introduced and further strengthened. Also, improvements in digital infrastructure that allow firms to operate remotely along the global value chains and access foreign markets. And to support the intra-regional trade, African countries need to make concerted efforts to harmonize their trade-related regulations, customs controls, and reduce both tariffs and non-tariff barriers, and at the same time improve the infrastructure and connectivity to lower the logistics cost. And as mentioned by the previous speakers, one of the goals of African Continental Free Trade Area is to promote gender equality. And while women entrepreneurs represent about 70% of informal cross-border trade in Africa, so the African Continental Free Trade Area can help women entrepreneurs to communicate with wider value chains at the national and regional levels, and thus help them grow their business. Thank you for your kind attention. And,
welcome.
Thank you very much.
Mrs. Anne?
All right.
Hi, Mrs. Anne.
Great. Let me go ahead and share my screen, and then we can start the presentation.
Okay. You have 10 minutes.
Great. All right, so I want to start off by thanking the Egyptian African Business Association for giving me the opportunity to be part of this Africa Women Conference. And today I'll be talking about the role of banks and financial institutions in supporting the empowerment of African women compared to some continents of the world, and how advanced practical solutions can be reached within the African continent. So the goal here is about supporting trade and investment in Africa. All right, so we all know about the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement and all the opportunity it presents in regards to a market of 1.2 billion people and GDP of more than 2.5 trillion. But what I've been telling a lot of people is that, I don't know if a lot of people know this, but the African Union in February 2020 did state that this is the decade of women's financial and economic inclusion. So this is very important for all African women on the continent. And because of that, it is very important that we all understand what are the opportunities and how do we access them. So of course, the first one is access to market, which is what the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement opens up. But I also start telling a lot of women, you want to look at where you are and what is it that you can do. For example, I am based out of Nairobi in Kenya. So of course, when I started my business, I looked at the East Africa community. Then I went into COMESA. So for all of you African women, you need to understand what country am I, how do I start in the region as you grow continentally and then globally. And because today I'll be talking about finance, I'll go deeper into it. But the main thing that I have seen with a lot of women and why they're not able to access finance is one, they don't keep their financial records. A lot of us are very informal. And so that is something that women need to change. You need to have financial records. You need to have business plans, which means you need to know where you are and where you want to go. And especially if you're doing trade continentally and globally, you need to make it formal by having contracts with your buyer. Also, like I said, one of the things you need to do is when you're looking at these opportunities to access finance, you need to build capacity of your business so that you can take advantage of that. Now, when we talk about the role of banks and financial institutions, of course, most Africans or most SMEs, which are majority of the businesses on the continent, they think about banks. So when you think about banks, you're thinking about lending, right? So you're borrowing from the bank and you pay them back with interest. But when you think about other financial institutions, you have the option of getting a grant, you have the option of borrowing and also having someone invest in your business. And so that is the work that we do at Regal Africa with our Biashara plan, which basically means that we work to link formal SMEs to funding. Now, the practical solutions that we say that you really need in order for you to be able to grow as a business is one, you need to be formal and you need to prepare for funding. So the first thing which has been alluded earlier is you need to register your business. Every time you want to get funding and affordable funding, you need to have a registered business. So we need to move from informal businesses as women to formal businesses. You also need to start financial management, which earlier mentioned about your financial records. This is very important because once you keep your books, your financial records, someone can able to look into your financial statement, be it your profit or loss statements, or be able to look at your balance sheet and be able to advise you in the best way to take your business to the next level and even help you put together these business plans, because I feel that is what's holding a lot of women behind. And then now you want to start building capacity of your business. And that is what we say, some of the things that need to be done is how do you build the capacity of businesses? And we say banks need to be able to offer non-financial services, especially to MSMEs in Africa, and now they can partner with companies like ours to do that. Before I go into the three things I wanted to discuss today, I just wanted to share with you what I believe are the alternative sources of funding away from banks. And that is because a lot of women in Africa have had challenges in accessing banking funding. So I wanted to highlight just 10 of them. One of them is bootstrapping, which just means you have saved and you are using your money to get into that. There's also crowdfunding. So how do you get people together to put money to be able to then lend to you? There are also angels investors. You can go into micro lenders, which sometimes though the interest rate is very high. In Kenya, we have what are called SACCOs, which are savings and credit organizations. There are things like invoice discounting. In Kenya, we have government funding. There's donor funding like grants, venture capital, private debt funds, and private equity. And of course, these alternative sources of funding are available to you based on your stage of business. Now,
Annie, you have 4 minutes.
Okay, so what I believe African women really need is what they really, really need is, of course, capacity building, access to markets, and access to funding. But I really want to spend some time on this. I think there are three things that women need in order for them to access the funding. Is one, we need to get the opportunity to move away from collateral-based funding to cash flow-based funding. This is really good, especially for trade finance, as we're going to continue to do more trade in Africa and in the world. It's really good in case of working capital. And I think this will happen when more African women start working with corporates, start working with government, and they take up opportunity in digital trade. And this is going to be possible because of the trade data that you'll be able to get. If someone is doing digital trade, it's very easy for you to show a funder the kind of revenue that you're generating. And also, if you're working with corporates and government, there's some kind of payment guarantee. And so more lenders are going to be willing to be able to fund you. But cash flow-based funding is what is really needed by African women. The second thing is patient capital. So a lot of women say, look, I don't have the ability to borrow and start paying it back every month. So a lot of women need strategic partners who will come in. People need things like convertible debt. So that means you get the debt, but eventually that investor can turn into an equity investor. So patient capital is really what's needed by African women to take their businesses to the next level. And the third thing is what we call credit guarantee funds and schemes. And these are given to, SMEs. It's sort of like an insurance policy that gives a lender confidence to extend credit to potentially high-risk borrowers. Because a lot of women are considered high risk because they're informal, they're in SME. So I just wanted to highlight two things today. One is you can get credit guarantees from like the Africa Guarantee Fund, which gave about 50 million guaranteed facility to Equity Bank in Kenya. So Equity Bank was able, based on this guarantee, to be able to lend to more SMEs and mitigate the credit risk. Another thing that has been happening in East Africa by the Kenyan government is now they have a credit guarantee scheme. They've been able to work with a couple of banks, like Kenya Commercial Bank, Cooperative Bank, just different banks. And because of that, they have said, if you lend to these SMEs and they default, we will be able to guarantee this. And if we see more funds and more governments in Africa putting these credit guarantee schemes, it will enable more banks.
And 1 minute.
Okay.
1 minute.
We'll see more banks being able to lend to African women. And then I just wanted to sort of end with this and say the opportunities for women in Africa is enormous. You really want to start thinking digital trade. You really want to think about digital finance, and the opportunity we'll see is about digital trade facilitation that is going to be happening as we see the implementation of the Africa Continental Free Trade Agreement. And so I want to thank all of you for listening to me today. And I want to say that if you support a woman, you're able to impact the community, and you will see a lot of the work that we'll be doing at Regal Africa at the Center for International Trade, where we have a program about trade in Africa, where we talk to all women and men in Africa to take advantage of opportunities through inter-Africa trade. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Anne. And now, Mr. Gifty, please.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening.
Waiting for my slide.
Okay. You have 10 minutes from now.
Okay, maybe I just start. I wish to thank the leadership of this great conference for giving me this opportunity to share my thoughts on funding challenges, the business environment, and what are the applied solutions in supporting African women to succeed in the business community. First, I would like to say that the African woman, as has already been presented, is very strong. Hello?
Yes.
Good. The African woman is very strong, very resilient, very focused. And as per the case studies that we have seen so far, it means the African woman is capable of doing so many things, even doing so much in the midst of daunting and difficult challenges. And as we were told already, the African woman constitutes a large population, about half of the population of Africa. And then the African woman produces about 80% of the food for sub-Saharan Africa. I am saying all this for us to, as we already know, have a good picture of the capabilities of the African woman. Then we want to look at the business environment in which the African woman operates in. The environment is largely dominated by males. They are the decision makers, both at the governmental level, at the social level, and even in domestic affairs. The male take the key decisions. In the boardroom, most of the decisions on policies are taken by the men. And in addition to that, there are so many bureaucratic processes. Even registering a business is a huge difficulty for most women in Africa. And situations like even filing taxes and hours that it takes for women, businessmen in general, to file their returns, it's very difficult, and it becomes more difficult for the woman in particular. In addition to that, the environment is plagued with a lot of bribery and corruption. Sometimes there are instances where women will have to, maybe in some occasions, they are sometimes asked sexual favors because before what is rightly theirs can even be given to them. And again, in the area of culture, a woman has the responsibility to keep the home. Most of the home activities, or what we usually call house chores, are done by women. And sometimes maintaining a business, a successful business, and keeping the home can be very daunting. And the hours the woman takes in keeping the home is sometimes, in most of the records and researches that have been made, the time a woman takes in keeping a home is even more than what our male counterparts spend in the office. And we have also seen that the control over family assets is held by the man. So the woman doesn't have control over assets to take some key decisions. And one of the challenges that we are plagued with as women business owners in Africa is that we don't keep proper records, as has been said already by the previous speaker. We have improper records. So it becomes very difficult for us to assess funding because the records are not there. So anyone interested in the business of that particular woman will not have the courage and the confidence to go ahead and do that. Then one other challenge women in business service, women have the inability to separate the business from themselves. Everything is lumped together. So when I sell, sometimes I don't even pay myself. When I do business, I don't pay myself. I lump everything together. So it's difficult for a typical African businesswoman, especially those of us in the informal sector, to know that this is how much I have, this is how much cost went into my project, this is how much I've sold, this is how much I've made, and making even future projections. Most of the time, we don't even have business plan. And because lending is mainly tied to collaterals, most African women, because the woman does not have control over assets and properties, it's difficult for the woman to access funds. Then, because we have high illiteracy rates, most of the African businesswomen in the informal sector do not have entrepreneurial skills, and most of the workforce are unskilled. Then there's a huge lack of access to capital, as has been said by the previous speakers. A lot of surveys conducted have shown that women are not able to access the needed capital they require to push their businesses from the informal sector to the formal sector. The access to capitals is difficult, largely because, as I've already said, because women in the informal sector do not keep proper records. And again, to
Mrs. Gifty, you have 4 minutes.
Good, thank you. And because there are high interest rates, women are discouraged from accessing funds. Then the other problem too is that sometimes there are biases against women. People see a woman who is into business and they do not have any confidence that that woman is capable of doing something significant. So that limits the woman from accessing funds. And what do we need to do? Because for Africa to move forward and achieve economic empowerment, it cannot be done without the huge contribution of women. Women contribute a lot. They work from dawn to dusk, looking at the capabilities of a woman, how hardworking the African woman is. Leaving the African woman out of business without empowering the African woman, it means we are disenfranchising about half of the population. The access, the wealth that can be created by Africa, when we take the woman out or we limit the capability of the African woman, it means we are doing a great disservice to ourselves as a continent. What are some of the solutions? I'll just add a few. One of the solutions I will propose is the need for financial literacy to be intensified. There's a need for education, training, and some of the
2 minutes, please.
Yes, madam. Some of this training could be organized by women organizations. Training that will help model the right things that should be done in business, and also trainings that would help to harness the potential of the African businesswoman. And also there's a need for role modeling. It's very important for us to learn from ourselves and to see what others are doing. And we cannot leave out the government. The government has a key role to recognize the enormous contribution of the African woman and taking steps to ensure that African businesswomen are encouraged to give out their very best. They are given the enabling environment to produce and prosper economically. I conclude by saying, this is a statement by the World Bank president.
1 minute, Mrs. Gifty.
Excellent. It goes like the gender and women's empowerment is at the core of what we do in the field of development. Gender equality is also smart economics. So it is of imperative importance that the African woman is empowered and all the financial hurdles, if they cannot all be taken off, they should be minimized, the barrier should be reduced so that women can access more funding so that our businesses can grow and we can employ more people. Our economy will be better off and society at large will better from the economic empowerment of women. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gifty. شكرا لكم جميعا على ما قدمتوه لنا من حيث تمكين المرأة الأفريقية اقتصاديا. والآن نبدأ بالتوصيات المؤتمر. نبدأ بالدكتورة أماني أبو زيد مفوض الاتحاد الأفريقي للبنية التحتية. فلتتفضل. دكتورة أماني.
مهندسة عبير، ناخد بالترتيب. دكتورة أماني جايز يكون في كونكشن.
تمام، أوكي. دكتور مهندسة عبير.
I'd like to say that I think there needs to be a concerted effort on the part of governments, business associations like ours, and also individual companies to support women in breaking through the barriers that they create for themselves as a result of societal expectations, as a result of cultural constraints, and that can only be done by providing education and mentoring in a big way. Thank you.
Thank you. Abatesta, please, 1 minute recommendation. Papatastas?
Yes. So to give my final recommendation, I think for us on the African continent, we need to unlearn and relearn all the bad things we have learned so far. Like the saying goes, the 21st century graduates now is not just the one who can read and write, okay? But it is someone who can unlearn and relearn the negatives he has and learn the positives. So once we are able to learn clearly, knowing that information is now at the click of the fingertips, you and I will be able to promote intercontinental trade. And once we pull up policies, let's make purposive efforts to support women. It is the only way we can be sure we can achieve success together. Thank you so much for your participation. Please log on to our social media pages and you could reach us.
Thank you, Mrs. Vera. Thank you, Papa. Now, Mrs. Vera. Mrs. Vera.
Yes, my last comment, I'll say that as women in entrepreneurship and business, we cannot solely, or we should not solely rely on the programs and policies of government. Let us rise above our challenges and encourage each other to come up with more creative and innovative ways to support each other. We should be willing to mentor and coach each other. We should be willing to share valuable information and network amongst each other by organizing workshops and seminars, conferences such as these. We should form cooperatives and partnerships to support each other. And finally, I would want to end with a quote by Teresa Adjo. She says that she's a doctoral student of media literacy at the Center for Study of African Culture and Communication. And she once said that the majority of women have to first realize and believe that they need to push for their own progress. This majority should stand together as a powerful force to bring about change and progress in their community.
Thank you, Mrs. Vera.
I believe that that is what we're doing. Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Engineer Rhonda, would you please give your recommendation 1 minute?
Well, after listening to all these amazing ladies in different areas of business, I think we should create a common platform to share our expertise. And actually, this platform should help forward all women-owned businesses, and it should be represented in other business associations and help create opportunities for women in different aspects of business. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Rhonda. Mrs. Louisa, your recommendation 1 minute?
Yes, okay. So like I said earlier, my mom impacted in me knowledge and pushed me forward. I believe that we as women in this position should be willing to help another woman to push them further in their career or in their vision. I also believe that persistent, we should rise above any barrier and we should educate ourselves more in the digital world. This is the new thing and we need to, just understand and move with it. As the system is moving or as the world is moving, we move along with the world.
Thank you, Mrs. Louisa. Mrs. Rita?
What I would say is that there are a lot of women who has got potentials in our various countries. People are starting up businesses. Others don't have that opportunity. So some of us are startup, even though we are working in the formal sector. We are looking at training and educating and encouraging the young ones, especially women, to learn a skill, learn a trade, do something. It's not only the formal sector. The formal sector is choked. You and I know there are no jobs when you're done with school. So you need to actually come up with something. So as women gathered here today on this platform, let's encourage the others who are thinking of starting something. So I think with that, we'll be able to go far and the unemployment would be on the minimal. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Rita. Mrs. Tassin?
Okay. Once again, I'd like to say thank you Dr. Yusrif and EAPA for the opportunity. I'd like to round up by saying that as women in West Africa, in Africa, we need to know and maximize relevant agencies. In Nigeria, we have technology incubation centers who can help even a novice to start their export business. We need to reskill, we need to retool, we need to restructure, we need to upskill, we need to up our game to meet international standards with training and research and technology. We also need to, like everyone has said, expand in the digital economy, have digital footprints, be found online. That is the new level, that is the new playing field.
Thank you, Mr. Salsa.
Thank you.
Mrs. Damakasto, please.
I would like to say, because EAPA has already created this platform for us, we should further engage and explore any possible collaborations amongst ourselves and together working with EAPA to expand further and see how we can be able to leverage on such discussion going forward. So I am encouraging the second session, maybe being a feedback meeting or just a follow-up meeting with all the stakeholders.
Thank you, Mrs. Damakatsu. Dr. Fatma, Fadali.
Thank you. What can be said is that the African continent is rich in promising opportunities. And what we recommend is that it's time for the African continent to stop exporting its raw resources outside the continent. And African efforts must be combined to export finished products and take advantage of the competitive advantage of each country and share successful experiences and benefit from them. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Anne?
All right, so my last remarks and recommendation is to say that the future is bright for Africans, and of course, it's a great time to be an African woman in business. The barriers have been broken and new ways of doing trade and investments are coming up. So make sure you formalize your business, make sure you keep your financial records, and make sure you have a business plan to succeed. So it's time as African women, we rise up and be part of economic development and impact our communities through business. Go represent Africa to the world. Don't let anyone or anything stop you from achieving your dream. And as they say, it's time for Africa, especially African women and her children around the world. Thank you.
Mrs. Gifty, please.
Once again, I would like to thank you for this great opportunity. I've learned so much. What I would like to say is that there's so much we can do out there. The barriers are removed, or they are gradually being removed. The opportunity is there for us to take advantage and make our continent very, very proud, push the frontiers, do and dare and do the impossible so that Africa can make the needed impact. Thank you so much. It's been great meeting all of you.
Thank you. Thank you for all of you, for all the panelists, for their words and for their wealthy information about how to boom with the economic in the African continent. And now we are going to have the word for Dr. Yusri Al-Sharqawi, the president of the conference. يتفضل.
بشكركم شكرا جزيلا. شكري الجزيل للجنة المرأة الإفريقية بجمعية رجال الأعمال المصرية الفارقة. شكري لكل المتحدثين، كل المتابعين، كل المستمعين، لكل متحدثينا، وشكري موصول لرئيس اللجنة ونائب رئيس اللجنة بابتستا غانا، المهندسة عبير لهيطة رئيس اللجنة من مصر. لكن أنا أود أن أشكر الدكتورة جيلان شرف. الدكتورة جيلان وهي عميدة الإعلام بجامعة سابق بجامعة قناة السويس، وهي يعني الكاتبة والأديبة والإعلامية التي أدارت هذا المؤتمر باقتدار. شكرا جزيلا للدكتورة جيلان. وأود أن أضيف في التوصيات ما يلي. نحن يعني بصدد خلال أيام تدشين مركز إيابة الدولي للمؤتمرات والمعارض الافتراضية في نسخة من 12 معرض سنوي لتغطية كافة المجالات افتراضيا، وستكون الأولوية للشركات العاملة في المجتمع الأفريقي. 2 سوف يتم تدشين منصة دائمة أو معرض دائم From Africa to Africa لعرض المنتجات الإفريقية، وسوف يكون هناك نصيب لمنتجات المرأة الأفريقية بنسبة لا تقل عن 30% من المعروضات. 4 سنعلن من خلال لجنة المرأة الأفريقية عن مركز تدريب للغة الثالثة للمرأة الأفريقية، لأنه لا يمكن أن تتبادل الخبرات ولا يمكن أن نتبادل المعرفة بدون اللغة. وعامل اللغة في القارة الأفريقية كان أحد أهم العوامل للتدريب أونلاين في بعض المدربات لإحدى اللغات الست في القارة الأفريقية، حتى يتم إعطاء دورة مدتها 3 شهور في كل لغة. من تجيد الإنجليزية والفرنسية ربما تحصل على السواحلية أو الأمهرية أو البرتغالية والعكس، حتى نستطيع أن نثري، يعني لدينا هدف أن نصل إلى 3000 امرأة أفريقية تتحدث لغة ثالثة. التوصية بعد كده يعني زي ما قلنا في بداية اللقاء وحديثي مع الدكتورة أمانة أبو زيد، سوف نقيم آخر هذا العام جائزة مجتمع الأعمال للمرأة الأفريقية لعام 21، وهذه الجائزة سوف نعطيها ونخصصها لأكثر من 5 من سيدات ورواد الأعمال على مستوى القارة. وسنشكل بعد انتهاء المؤتمر مباشرة لجنة عليا للترشيحات والاختيارات ستعمل وتنعقد على مدار 6 أشهر حتى نستطيع أن نصل إلى قائمة الفائزات في عام 2021 تشجيعا للمرأة الأفريقية. أكرر شكري وجزيل وعرفاني وتقديري لكل الفضليات سيدات أفريقيا اللي أقاموا الليلة يعني جزء كبير جدا من تبادل الخبرات، من المعلومات، من العمل العلمي والبحثي من معهد التخطيط القومي في مصر، من العمل الميداني والتجربة المصرية للمهندسة رندا حافظ، من الريادة والقيادة التنفيذية للمهندسة عبير لهيطة، من الموارد البشرية وبتستا غانا إلى التمويل. اليوم استطعنا جميعا وسويا أن نحدث نقلة نوعية وحديث جديد للمرأة الأفريقية. شكرا لكم جميعا باسمي بالأصالة عن نفسي، مجلس إدارة جمعية رجال أعمال المصريين الأفارقة، وأيضا السادة رؤساء اللجان ونواب رؤساء اللجان وأعضاء الجمعية العمومية. لكم جميعا مني كل الشكر والتحية والتقدير. شكرا لكم جميعا، وأنا سعيد جدا بهذا المؤتمر الجيد الناجح بوجودكم جميعا.
شكرا دكتور يسري، وشكرا للقامات التي أثرينا هذا المؤتمر بمعلومات وبأفكار وبكيف ننمي الدور المرأة الأفريقية في تنمية الاقتصاد. وشكر موصول لكم جميعا، وأعتقد احنا كده نكون بنختم بالكلمات الجميلة اللي ألقاها علينا دكتور يسري هذا المؤتمر، وإن شاء الله نلتقي في مؤتمر آخر بإذن الله. شكرا لحضراتكم جميعا. شكرا دكتور يسري لحضرتك على يعني أن أقوم بإدارة هذا المؤتمر. شكرا موصول لحضراتكم جميعا. شكرا.
Thank you and goodbye everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Africa.
Thank you, Dr. Yusref. Thank you, Mrs. Baptista, and amazing
Bye.
ladies. Thank you. It's been a great time.
Thank you, Tosi.
Thank you from Cairo to all Egypt, to all Africa cities. Thank you for all of you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
شكرا مهندسة عبير، شكرا جزيلا.
شكرا
جزيلا.
Thank you very much. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.